Welcome to the Aurora Institute Symposium 2020 virtual session. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Susan Patrick, and I'm the CEO of Aurora Institute, and I'll be facilitating today's session. As you may know, we shifted our in-person symposium to a virtual convening in the wake of COVID-19. We'll be hosting this virtual symposium on October 26th through 28th, so please continue to save the date. And we're also hosting an all-fall series of symposium sessions that began in August and will extend through November. We hope you will join us for our virtual symposium, and we're so pleased to have you with us today. We have more than 20 sessions over 15 weeks to learn from and participate in. This summer, we surveyed the field of K-12 education and received over 560 responses from practitioners on their needs. A key finding was that educators and practitioners expressed a need for more expertise on how to increase engagement and motivation, especially for designing personalized mastery-based learning, anytime, anywhere, for students and adults. Today's webinar is on the science of motivation, barriers to student motivation and how to fix them. We're so pleased to have this session today. Next slide. For those of you participating, please use the chat box to introduce yourself. We'll also be adding resources into that chat room. We'll be using the chat box to ask questions, make comments. Feel free to share resources for your own work throughout today's session. You can click next to your name on more and also add your name and institution too. At the top of the screen on Zoom, there's a place for view options for annotating or for snapping screenshots. If you're on social media, we're using Twitter, hashtag Aurora2020 and at Aurora-INST. Please feel free to be active on social media and share your thoughts and insights. Please note today's session will be recorded and archived on the Aurora Institute Symposium website. We'll send you a follow-up email within the next few days with the slides and the recording and resources. And now, next slide, I would like to welcome our presenters. Katrina Stevens is the Director of Learning Sciences at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Julio Chao Gamboa is the Senior Manager, Educator Capacity for the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Thank you so much for being with us today for this important topic and to learn more about your work, the research from the learning sciences on motivation and strategies for designing powerful, engaging learning experiences. I will now turn it over to you, Julio. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Excited to be here with everyone. I'm going to start with just a brief overview of who we are and who CZI is coming into this. Feel free to go to the next slide. So the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative launched about 4 years ago when Mark and Priscilla's first child, Max, was born. In an open letter, they pledged to give away 99% of their wealth, and CZI is a philanthropic organization they founded to do this. Currently, and on the next slide, we have 3 initiatives at CZI: science, justice and opportunity, and education. Those are the areas where we are making grants. In science, our goal is to cure and manage all disease by the end of the century. Our Justice and Opportunity Initiative is currently focused on criminal justice, affordable housing, and immigration. And these initiatives reflect the experiences of our founders. For example, Priscilla Chan was both a pediatrician and an elementary school teacher. She and her parents were also refugees when they entered this country. So our focus on immigration is also closely tied to her personal history. On the next slide, I actually already did this slide too, so we can go to the next slide. So we're here representing the Education Initiative, and our goal at CZI Education is to ensure that every young person enters adulthood with the knowledge, skills, habits, and agency to thrive in a changing world. And we are excited to be sharing with you here today. Our approach is pretty different from a number of other philanthropic organizations in that across all of these initiatives, we believe that technology is a critical tool in getting to see this vision of the future. By harnessing technology, we feel like we can tackle challenges in new ways and help drive faster progress on the issues that we care about. So we pair engineering with grant making, impact investing, policy work, and movement building to engage the different working parts of the system. You can go to the next slide there. We also recognize that we can't do this work alone. We try to work closely with partners and communities to develop and implement solutions. In education, our work is so focused on ensuring that every student, not just a lucky few, can get an education that allows them to reach their full potential. But right now we're focused specifically on K through 12 in the US. And when we say every young person, we truly mean all children, especially those that are most marginalized and particularly those that are furthest behind. You can go to the next slide. Our approach is around recognizing that academic success alone is not enough and that we need to pursue a broadened conception of success for all students. We believe that this starts with taking a whole child approach to learning. In short, expanding the definition of student success beyond academic achievement to include a student's physical, mental, social, and emotional needs as well. We believe that this must be informed by the science of learning what we know about how students learn. Next slide, please. Before I pass it over to Katrina to dig more into the content, we're hoping that we can take a quick poll to see who is in the room. Katrina and I were both administrators and also teachers before, and we want to make sure that we are understanding who the audience is today with us so that we can make sure that we meet what you are looking for. So there's the poll. It is in progress. It should be popping up on your screen right now. You mind taking a second there? All right, most folks have completed. I'm gonna go ahead and end this. And I think it will show us all the results. If not, then I'll give them a quick voiceover. But just so that we can all get a sense of who is here in the room, we have a number of nonprofit partners. We are a little bit high school leaning. That's where I taught high school English. And here in terms of how we are currently teaching, the fact that we are all virtual is super significant. And hopefully Katrina will take us through some opportunities to engage students in this virtual setting, certainly. With that, I will pass it over to you, Katrina, and we can move to the next slide.
Thank you. Super excited to be with you. I always enjoy getting to reconnect with educators. And so our work, our family, and personal lives have been changing even before COVID hit. And now we're all experiencing significant changes in how we operate. And all of this means is that we need to redesign how we prepare young people and how we are supporting even the adult learners to engage equitably in this new world. In the first part of my career, I was really fortunate to work in a wide range of schools. And I remember two young women when I first started teaching at an incredibly challenged high school in North Philadelphia neighborhood. This is a place where the doors were locked to keep the drug dealers out. And this is a school that eventually closed because of the level of violence. But there were these two girls, and it appeared like these two girls had made it their mission to make my teaching life as miserable as possible. Now, if any of you have ever had students like this, they would roll their eyes anytime I assigned work. They would talk loudly to each other when I was talking. They'd make comments about what some young white teacher was going to teach them. I tried all the tricks in my bag with that particular class. I tried to make the content exciting and relevant. I tried a reward system. I stayed after school to help students who had gaps. And most of my students responded positively, but not these two though. I'll come back to these students a little bit later. Next slide. We now know so much more about how people learn than we did even 10 years ago. Certainly more than when I was teaching that particular class, which was over 25 years ago. We call the body of research around how people learn learning science. As you know, learning science isn't about teaching science to students, but rather it's really a set of sciences about how people learn. And despite all the advances in learning science, we still are not really getting these advances in the real world. It's not getting translated into practice into our classrooms. So what does that mean for us? It means that our teachers and others are often wasting time and resources on less effective learning methods And we're not taking advantage of the talent, the full talent that our students have. Next slide. Next, okay. It's also important to recognize that context matters as well. We remember and master skills better when we learn in the context that we'll use them. This means we need to make the connections to the smaller skills we're learning to the larger whole. We need that context and we need to understand the purpose of what we're learning. It's not just that it's more interesting to know the why. Our brains actually work better if we can connect the pieces. And this is true for students as well. If we don't know the full context of what is going on in a child's life, we are less able to be effective in helping them learn. Next slide. We also advocate for remembering that one size most definitely does not fit all, and that learning experiences need to be tailored for specific learners. At CZI, one of the things we're trying to shift in education is the use of asset-based, equity-informed evidence to make decisions. We particularly want to help educators find the information that they need to make decisions about how to support their particular students. As you know, educators, we want to know whether or not we think something will work for the students that are like our students. So where do most people go for their information? Go ahead and put your guesses in the chat feature. Where do you think most teachers go to find information? I'm not seeing folks guess. Oh, I see, now a few are coming in. Yep. A few of you are noticing. So when we have actually surveyed this, the teachers said Google, which is what a number of you are saying. So next slide. So not everything you read about learning is true. How many of you have heard of left and right brains? It's not a fact. We use both sides of our brains for analytical thinking and for creative thinking. I could spend all afternoon sharing more near miss, but you know most of them already. Next slide. So this is one of my favorite quotes, so I always try to slip it in, and it feels particularly relevant in these uncertain times. So education must enable one to sift and weigh evidence, to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, and the facts from the fiction. But next slide. We promised that this session would be about learning science and motivation. So let's talk about motivation. Next slide. First, student engagement isn't the same thing as motivation. It's also important to note that student engagement also isn't the same as learning. Just because students are excited and find something fun doesn't necessarily mean that they're learning. There are often ways that student engagement actually do lead to learning, but that isn't the only indication. My CZI colleague, Boris Zuckerberg, published a piece on motivation last year with another researcher, Richard Clark, that pulls together many pieces of learning science to tackle motivation. So I'm going to share a little bit more about that. Next slide. And once we, just to give you a little preview, so once we go through this piece, we're then going to give a few examples for you to be able to kind of try these things out and be able to talk to each other about what you're seeing. So we know quite a lot about motivation. Once you've overcome obstacles to motivation, which we're going to talk about next, you're then able to start and persist and put the necessary mental effort to learn. So that's how we define motivation. It's being able to have enough mental effort to start, persist, and to finish. And as you develop fluency, much of this starts to become automatic. And this learning moves from your short-term to your long-term memory. Eventually, these skills become automatic, like driving a car. And next slide. Okay, in this motivational model, it's important to identify what the underlying cause of motivation is in order to support a learner. For example, there are 4 basic obstacles to motivation. Confidence. You just don't think you can master it. I can't do it. Value. You don't value what you're learning or how you're learning enough to put in that effort. I'll never use this. When am I ever going to use algebra? That's probably a question that some of you have heard before. And I have used it as an adult. But unexpected negative events. You blame something in your environment preventing you from starting or for your success. So my teacher doesn't care about me. It could be I studied, I crammed all night, but I still only got a C. So you're blaming something, attributing something that's outside of you in terms of what has gone wrong. And then negative emotions, and this is one that we particularly want to spend some time on and to pay attention to right now, because all of our young people, our children, our young adults, and we're all really struggling to manage the world right now. So even if they were already struggling with different pieces of that, it's hard for any of us to not feel a little anxious in the times that we're in right now. Um, so before you can help people become motivated enough to persist and put an effort, it's important to recognize like what might be getting in the way. If some of you are no longer paying attention to me right now, for example, it could be because you're hungry. So feel free to eat your lunch or snack during this workshop if this is your lunchtime. So back to those two students of mine. One day around February, these two girls casually walked with me to the office after class. Now this may not seem like a small thing, but it was a big thing. Other students have been walking me to and from our classroom to make sure I was safe on a regular basis, but never these two girls. And once shyly said something about the earrings I was wearing as a way to connect. From then on, they completely turned around and they became my new best friends. And so why? It's because I finally believed I wasn't going to leave them, as so many of their teachers had before. I'd made a comment the day before about a program I was planning to run the next year, and then I'd just gotten some funding for it. This particular class had gone through a series of teachers, substitutes, supposed full-time teachers who had all just quit. There'd been a very large strike and a number of disruptions in the school. These young women were afraid to connect with someone who would leave them. And I couldn't motivate them using any of the techniques I tried because none of those techniques accounted for the mental states that they were in. If I'd understood earlier that this was the core issue, I may have been able to connect with those girls earlier and been able to help them learn more like earlier in the year. Okay, so next slide. So I've been talking to you for quite a bit, which is not a good teaching and learning strategy. So we're gonna take a moment. We're gonna have you go into breakout rooms. And there, I want you to just introduce yourself, and as part of your intro, share one thing that either resonates that Julio or I've shared, or that you've learned so far. And we're gonna take about 3 minutes for this activity. And then we'll return to the room.
I think all of our groups are back. No matter how many times you come out of a breakout room, it always feels so jarring. I am petitioning Zoom to make a fade in, fade out feature, or like a give me 30 more seconds button feature. So just keep, if anyone knows anyone, let me know. We can go to the next slide. Katrina, do you want me to jump in or you? Okay. So this slide is referencing a document that you will have access to. And if we can put the link into the chat to that document, that would be super helpful at this time. As part of this webinar experience, one of the things that we're hoping that you can take away is this framework that is a handout that is a document for strategies on how to motivate students and teachers. And there is a simplified motivation strategy observation tool, along with a detailed and then extending motivation strategies observation tools. We're not going to get through like the whole tool today, but we're hoping that this can be something that you can take away and then apply to your schools and contexts after you leave this webinar. So if there's something that you are taking away with you as like one thing that you can implement, this is definitely like one thing. What we're going to do today is we are going to practice applying this to a you could call it a recorded conversation. It's a scene from a movie, and it says there, Mr. Holland's Opus. Before we jump into this, I want to acknowledge up front that it's critical to note that we are going to watch a conversation between a white teacher and a white student, and that we are watching this particular instance because it is a widely available media instance of a conversation that actually gets at some of the things that are in the observation tool. Our desire to bring in diverse voices and our desire to bring in authentic student voice in a way that also protects student data privacy, et cetera, is, I'm sure, not new to anyone here. But I wanted to make sure that we were naming that explicitly before we jumped into watching this video. So if we go over to the next slide, here's the structure for our next 20 or 25 minutes together. I'm sorry, I snuck the next slide in there instead of just saying next slide. While we're waiting for our next slide here, if you haven't clicked on this link already, link already, you should be able to open and make a copy of this observation tool so that while we're watching this clip, you can be taking notes about what you are seeing in terms of observed practices or strategies for motivation. What did the teacher do? related to confidence, value, unexpected negative events, and negative emotions. And I think at that point, I'll go on mute and we can go ahead and queue up the video. And we're going to watch 4.5 minutes. You should be taking notes in your observation tool. You're going to then have a chance to debrief that in your breakout room, and then we'll come back together and watch the rest of the clip.
Just as a former principal, the first thing my response to the scene is like, you would never have a teacher meet with a student one-on-one like that. So removed from any other adults or any other students.
Yes, our list of intentional caveats about trying to find an example that is readily available and that shows some of these motivation strategies for sure. So let's jump into the breakout rooms and take your observation tool with you into the conversation. You'll have a few minutes in there. I think we'll have around 5 minutes in there. What are the strategies that you saw? What were the teacher actions? What were the student inputs?
And this could be good or bad. I mean, he's not a perfect teacher, but what kinds of things did you see that might have fallen into the confidence, the value, I can't do this because, or negative emotions?
All right, I think we made it back. We had a good conversation in our group. Some of the conversation was around like what's going to happen next. So let's go ahead and watch the rest of this clip. And then at the end, we'll save some time for whole group sharing. Let's go ahead and jump back into our breakout rooms and have the conversation there. And we'll see you back here in a few minutes. All right. So the quote here, what strategies or teacher practices did you see? I actually like to leave it open-ended. I think we have like a minute or two for just a couple comments, what came up in the groups. Any like aha moments that anyone had from a comment someone else made in their group?
You're a very quiet group.
You appreciate the importance of immediate feedback.
Well, I mean, I'll say we were talking about it before, but I really appreciate how you're trying to break this thing down into pieces. And I think it's really, it makes a lot of sense. So I like this systematic way of doing it.
Yeah, thanks, David. In our group, we had an interesting conversation around the tension between that and the like very relational work that this is oriented around. And there's definitely some tension and even some irony there. And like there's like a framework here for different approaches into being able to identify, I think, like places to improve or places to look for. Like, is there a specific part of dealing with the lack of motivation where I think I could actually like set some goals around as a teacher to say like, I'm going to emphasize this more in the relationship building in my class. And so hopefully it is a takeaway that you can use and apply and like try to find some strategies for. I will pass it over to Katrina. Thank you for your engagement in the breakout groups today. Yeah, Justin, thank you for the comment in the chat. Katrina, I'll let you take it from here. And then.
So we'll move to the next slide. Okay. So one thing, even if you only take one thing from this workshop, one of the things that young people and adults need right now is just a sense of control, especially in these uncertain times, being able to have some sense of agency and being able to make some decisions for yourself and be able to figure out we're not gonna be able to change the world. There's a lot of pretty uncertain things happening and acknowledge that that's real. But to look for inside that, what are the parts that you can do? What are the things that you can figure out to have that sense of being able to, to be able to make some progress on your own. For like adults, this is complicated, but for adolescents, it's incredibly important for adolescent development. The teens and tweens are reforming their boundaries and expectations that prepare for adulthood, increasing autonomy. So these are things that are just part of their development already. And then in response to COVID, the pandemic, that schools and families alike have made enormous changes to their structures and routines. We saw that almost everyone here is in either all virtual or in some kind of hybrid model. So everything that you knew how to do before all looks at least a little bit different now. And that's same thing that's true for our students. And we're literally all building the plane as we fly. We didn't have time to prepare for this. It hit us, and then we've been just trying to adjust as things have been coming at us. But again, it's not possible to change the circumstances, but you can change the strategies you and your students use to manage them. And so I want to go back through the next slide and just look through, again, this is back to the framework, and just talk about some specific strategies that you can think about. And then I'm also going to have it open for folks to add in the chat if you have examples of a strategy you've tried, or an example of one of these. So for confidence, really able to show, like, if students think I can't do this, and it's one to figure out like where that's coming from. You can help them see that they've done things like this before and been successful. Show stories from others that are like them with this issue who were successful. Think about if any of you saw the Joe Biden clip where he talked about struggling with stuttering, and just how much of an impact that had on young children who also struggled with stuttering. So being able to find someone who looks like them, who has a similar issue and was able to go through that. Emphasize effort. There was a moment in that film clip where he's saying like, yeah, it's not easy to learn an instrument. It takes time, it takes effort. Help them to develop a strategy for when they're stuck. Okay, so now you're stuck. What are the tools that you want to do? Like, is it that you recheck the directions, you ask for a friend, then you reach out to a teacher. Emphasizing a growth mindset. So help them reframe. It's sort of not that I can't do this, but you can't do this yet. Reinforce that they're not helpless. Again, help them find the places where they have some ability to help themselves. Teaching study strategies and creating opportunities for students to reflect on how those strategies impact performance. I'm going to share an example of that in a minute. And then the value, it's helping find a connection to like how it might impact them. And sometimes students may not find something of value, but being able to connect to that to a particular skill, but being able to connect to that too. But you have a higher goal of really wanting to go to college, and this is something that you need to do to be able to get there. Using real world examples that are tailored for students, giving learners choices. I also always give my students, they had a choice of whether or not they wanted to take the test first or write the essay first. And they still had to do both of them, but they had some sense of of being able to have some choices that were part of that. Showing examples of people who look like them doing related work. For example, if you're teaching science, making sure that there are scientists of color for your students to be able to see like, oh, there are people who look like me that can do this work and are good at this. Connecting to individual interests and experiences, just making it itself enjoyable. So there is a place for engagement and that kind of passion, and then just generally showing enthusiasm. We all have teachers who are just full of energy, but even just having that passion for your content comes through. And so let's click to the next slide. And I'll just share an example of something I did when I taught 9th grade English. So in the first quarter, I had students, we tried a different learning strategy every single week for learning vocabulary. So we did traditional flashcards, then we tried flashcards that actually had like more information on them, including pictures. We tried being able to like learn, to practice before you went to sleep to see if like overnight it would help you go into your memory. We tried flipping. We even had read a study that said that peppermint helped with memory. So we practiced sucking on peppermint while studying. And then at the end of that quarter, they tried a whole set of things. And then I asked them to think about which ones worked and which ones that they thought were good matches for them. And there was often a combination of those. But they had the ability to stop, think, and then they had some agency of, for the rest of the year, I didn't have any instructions about how they learned the vocabulary. They were able to use whatever technique and strategies worked for them. So let's go to the next slide. So curious, like if anyone wants to throw any additional, this is the same slide we just saw, any additional strategies or things that worked for them. And then I'm gonna, just because for time, I'm gonna move us on to the next slide. Okay. And so this is for unexpected negative events and for negative emotions. So similarly, look for controllable causes and make plans to address them. For right now, it could be things like, do you have a space to work at home if you're working at home? Do you have a time carved out? Some real things are like, do you have internet access? If you don't, can you problem solve with students to figure out how to get that? Materials, is there an alternative if students don't have a particular material at home? Providing opportunities for revision cycles so that if they try something, take a risk, and if it doesn't work, then they're able to, then they have another opportunity to be able to try again. Teach study strategies similar to what I just did and give them opportunities for them to think about and reflect. The biggest one was show them that you care. And we saw that in the video, how important that was for her to be able to then shift to being able to learn. Negative emotions. And this is a wide range because some of our students may be facing really significant challenges that are maybe beyond what we can offer students, and being able to identify when those students might actually need additional professional help. But even in the context of just the world that our children are in right now, creating a supportive learning environment and a sense of belonging as much as possible, really actively listening, acknowledging that, that their anxiety is legitimate or whatever that's going on, that those are real emotions. Take an extra minute time to just understand what your interests and opinions are, even if you're doing that in a virtual setting, having some structures to be able to do that. And then let's do the next slide. So just an example, there's a number of teachers that have done some version of this, like morning choices. So as kids come in, the kids get to choose which one they want. This gives student choice and agency. It also really supports that teacher-student connection, because as you're saying hi to the child, you're using their name and you're letting them know, I see you, I know you. And it's a familiar routine that creates a sense of belonging. So the next slide. I do recognize in COVID, hugging and handshakes and pinky shakes, all of these things are not necessarily things that we can do, but there's still a number of things. And you could do, if you're in a virtual environment, still have the virtual high five. So there's ways to be creative, and kids themselves might actually come up with good ideas that help them feel connected and have a sense of belonging and a sense of routine. The next slide. Okay. So this was just the same one. So let's go to the next one. Again, I'm worrying about time. Okay. I am not sure, there's this, I'd like to be able to show just a couple minutes of this quote, of this video. I think this is a good example, and I'm just curious to have you guys look to see how this connects to the observation framework.
Here's the focus for today. Okay, so we are going to dig back into this book that we're reading.
This is our advisory. The facilitator is Mr. Prather. Man, can't say enough about him.
All right, so
I just feel like I could talk to him about anything.
a lot of the issues that we explore are relative to what's happening in the community. This semester we're reading All American Boys. Today we finished a chapter that concluded with one character kind of giving a thesis or an argument about the role that authority plays in the lives of people like him. In this case, he's a young African-American male whose brother has just been assaulted by a police officer.
And guess what saved the day? Football. Football, Spoonie said. Another one of America's favorite pastimes besides baseball and beating the brains out of. Turn the TV back on quick.
When I heard that, like, I instantly, it just drew me into it because it's just a lot going on and that I can relate to.
We had a few kids who were willing to share that gut reaction today and applied the elements of the text to things that are happening in the lives directly around them.
People abuse their authority when they get it. Like, I just go through a lot of that on a day-to-day basis.
I come from experiences that are wildly different from the experiences that most of my kids have had. Not all of my kids are from the United States. Not all of them are from Nashville. And so just asking questions, getting to know kids, asking them what their stories are.
Not about myself, but I've seen it happen to
Do you see these things happening? Or is this something that you kind of know happens, but it's not part of your experience, or what?
It's happened to me, my friends, family, almost everybody I know. People I'm around, like, every day, like, it just make us so mad, like, to the point where we don't even care about authority anymore. Like, we don't want to listen to nobody in authority, because, like, y'all done us so wrong, like, all this time, so why we listen to y'all now?
You make yourself vulnerable. You make yourself the student. I'm far more the student than the teacher in this case.
Like, put yourself in, like, the situation, what happened in the book, that still goes on. I mean, I feel it's never gonna go away, but I mean, hey.
When kids have an opportunity to share their stories, and when you
We'll make sure you have the link to this. It's only maybe 30 seconds more. I just wanted to share because I think this is a great example of the kinds of conversations that that we could be having with students now, and just being able to listen to them and be able to hear how they're thinking, hear what's important to them, acknowledging their reactions, and laying that groundwork of trust for them to be able to do that. Then that actually allows to be able to then create the relationships in place for other kinds of learning and to be able to get it. But if your students are thinking about these kinds of issues all day, it's really hard to be able to then shift gears and suddenly care about algebra when some of these enormous events are happening in their lives. So I wanted to just show you the last slide, and you're going to have this. This is just a set of resources. I'm going to skip this one. And so I just wanted to share this with you. Again, you'll have the links will be on the presentation, so you can look at those. But a number of the ones on the left are around how learning works, and the one on the right are really a number of different partners that we've worked with, or that we've that have to do with either well-being or working actively on anti-racist practices or closing equity gaps. And most of these resources are things that are created specifically for thinking about kind of a COVID world right now. So really appreciate you spending the time. I know how valuable educator time is. And so I'm really grateful that you spent time with us today.
Thank you so much, Katrina and Julio, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We just join together and use your reactions and thank everyone. And as a reminder, the session was recorded and will be shared with you via email in the coming days. In the next slide, please consider responding to our 1-minute survey about this webinar by clicking on the link that we'll add to the chat box. We value your feedback and appreciate your comments. Next slide. And we hope you'll consider continuing to join us again soon for upcoming symposium sessions. We have sessions on building educator capacity for equity with competency-based approaches and professional learning. We have sessions on high school internships in the time of COVID and moving these work-based learning opportunities remotely, and a number of others on using time differently, performance assessments. So take a look at the website, and we hope to see you again soon. Continue to follow our social channels, and we wish you the best. Take care, and thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Julio. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks for having us.